The stars looked different than Jake Morrison remembered. Not that he could see them clearly through the thick glass of the cryopod, but something felt wrong. The last thing he recalled was the gentle hum of the pod systems as they put him under for the long journey to Alpha Centauri. That was supposed to take 20 years. The mission briefing had been clear about that dot. Now voices spoke around him in languages he had never heard before. Some sounded like clicking insects, others like wind through metal pipes. A few sounded almost human, but the words were all wrong. Jake tried to move, but his muscles felt like stone. The cold sleep had lasted too long. "The biological signs are stabilizing," said a voice that sounded female and human. "Heart rate is coming down to normal levels. Brain activity looks good." "How fascinating," came another voice, this one deeper and with a strange hissing quality. "A primitive human from the early exploration period. The historical value alone is remarkable." Jake wanted to ask what they meant by primitive, but his throat felt like sand. The cryopod hissed, and the lid began to open. Warm air rushed in, carrying smells he did not recognize. Chemical scents mixed with something like ozone and metal dot light hit his eyes like a hammer. Jake squeezed them shut and tried to sit up. Strong hands helped him, and he heard the human-sounding voice again. "Easy there. Take your time. You have been asleep for a very long time." "How long?" Jake managed to croak out. His voice sounded terrible. "We will explain everything soon. First, let us make sure you are healthy." Jake opened his eyes slowly. The room around him was huge and filled with equipment he had never seen before. Screens floated in the air without any support. Lights moved and changed colors on their own. But it was the people in the room that made him stare. Only 2 of them looked human. One was a woman with dark skin and kind eyes, wearing some kind of blue uniform. The other was a man with pale skin and nervous expressions. The rest were clearly not human at all. A tall creature with green scaly skin and yellow eyes studied him with great interest. It had 4 arms and wore what looked like a lab coat. Next to it stood something that looked like a giant bug walking on 2 legs, with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. In the corner, a cloud of glowing gas seemed to watch him, occasionally forming shapes that might have been a face. "What is this place?" Jake asked. "Where am I? Where is the colony ship?" The human woman stepped forward. "My name is Commander Lyra Voss. You are aboard the research vessel, Starfall Unity. I know this is confusing, but we found your cryopod drifting in space near the edge of our solar system." "Drifting? That is impossible. I was on the U's horizon, heading to establish the first colony on Kepler 442b. We launched in 2156. The room went quiet. The scaly creature made a sound like a low whistle. The bug thing clicked its mandibles rapidly. Even the gas cloud seemed to shimmer with excitement. "What year do you think it is?" Commander Voss asked gently. "It should be around 2176, maybe 2180, if the journey took longer than expected." "Why?" Commander Voss looked at the others in the room, then back at Jake. "I am sorry to tell you this, that the year is 2387. You have been in cryosleep for over 200 years. Jake felt the world spin around him. 200 years. Everyone he had ever known was dead. His family, his friends, his fellow crew members. All gone. "The colony mission?" he said weakly. "What happened to the horizon?" "Records from that period are incomplete," Commander Voss said. "But we know that several early colony ships were lost. Some had equipment failures. Others simply disappeared. Yours is the first cryopod we have ever recovered from that era." The scaly creature stepped forward and spoke in accented but clear English. "I am Dr. Zakthul, Chief Science Officer of this vessel. Your survival is quite remarkable. The technology in your cryopod is primitive by our standards, yet it kept you alive for centuries. We are very interested in studying how this was possible. Jake looked around the room again. You keep saying primitive. What do you mean? Humanity has changed much since your time, Commander Voss explained. We are now part of something called the Galactic Federation. There are hundreds of intelligent species in the galaxy, and we work together for peace and exploration. Hundreds of species? Jake stared at the aliens in the room. You mean all of this is normal now? Very normal, said the bug creature in a voice like grinding gears. I am Rickstar, the ship's chief engineer. My people, the Cleeth, have worked with humans for over 50 years. You humans are known for being adaptable and creative, though not particularly strong or intelligent compared to most species. Jake felt a strange anger at that comment, but he pushed it down. He was clearly out of his depth here. The gas cloud moved closer and formed what might have been a face. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. I am Wisp Moore, diplomatic advisor. Your species holds a respectable position in the Federation, though you are considered a Tier 3 civilization. There are 5 tiers total, with Tier 1 being the most advanced. Tier 3, Jake repeated. What does that mean exactly? Dr. Zackthil answered. It means humans are capable of interstellar travel and basic energy manipulation, but you lack the advanced technologies and abilities of higher-tier species. Most humans serve in support roles within the Federation. They are valued for their flexibility and determination, but rarely in positions requiring great physical or mental capabilities. Jake absorbed this information. In his time, humans had thought they were alone in the universe. They had been proud of their achievements, of reaching for the stars. Now it seemed they were just one small part of something much larger, and not even a particularly impressive part. I need to contact Earth, Jake said. My family, they need to know what happened. Commander Voss looked sad. Earth is still there, and humans have spread to many worlds. But everyone you knew is gone, Jake. I am sorry. The records from your time are mostly lost. We know very little about the early colony missions, or the people who were part of them. Jake closed his eyes and tried to process everything. 200 years. A galaxy full of aliens. Humanity reduced to a junior partner in some cosmic alliance. It was too much. We will give you time to adjust, Commander Voss said. Dr. Park, our medical officer, will help you with the transition. She is human, like U.S., though her family came from one of the newer colonies. A young woman with brown hair stepped forward. Jake had not noticed her before among all the aliens. She smiled at him warmly. Hi, Jake. I am Dr. Lisa Park. I know this is overwhelming, but we will take it slow. First, let us get you some food and clean clothes. Then we can talk more about what life is like now. Jake nodded, not trusting his voice. As Dr. Park helped him stand, he noticed something odd. His legs felt strong, stronger than they should after centuries of sleep. His vision was sharp, sharper than he remembered. Even his thinking felt clearer somehow, but he said nothing about it. These people already thought humans were weak and simple. No need to give them more reasons to study him like some kind of ancient artifact dot as they left the medical bay. Jake caught his reflection in a polished wall panel. He looked exactly the same as when he had gone into cryosleep. Not a day older, but something in his eyes was different. Something that had not been there before. Something that might be important later. Jake had been on the Starfall Unity for 3 weeks now. The ship was bigger than anything he could have imagined in his time. It had gardens that grew food, recreation areas with games he did not understand, and laboratories filled with equipment. That seemed like magic to him that Dr. Lisa Park had been patient with him, explaining how things worked in this new world. She told him about the different alien species, the Galactic Federation, and how humans fit into it all. Jake listened carefully, but part of him was still trying to accept that his old life was gone forever. The food dispensers can make almost anything, Dr. Park explained as they walked through the ship's main corridor. Just think about what you want to eat and press your hand on the scanner. Jake tried it. He thought about a hamburger and fries, simple food from his time. The machine hummed for a moment, then produced something that looked close, but tasted slightly wrong. It takes some getting used to, Dr. Park said with a smile. The computer has to guess what foods from your era tasted like based on old records. They passed a section where crew members were working on repairs. Jake noticed Rickstar, the bug-like engineer, struggling with a heavy piece of equipment. Without thinking, Jake stepped over and lifted the metal panel that two other crew members had been unable to move. Here, let me help with that, Jake said, holding the panel steady while Rickstar worked underneath. The Cleath engineer's multiple eyes blinked in surprise. That panel weighs over 200 kilograms. How are you lifting it so easily? Jake looked down at the panel in his hands. It did feel heavy, but not impossibly so. I guess I am stronger than I look. Dr. Park stared at him with concern. Jake, that is not normal human strength. Even our strongest workers use lifting equipment for panels that heavy. Jake carefully set the panel down. Maybe the cryo sleep did something to me. I have been feeling different since I woke up. Different how? Dr. Park asked. Jake thought about it. His vision was sharper than it had ever been. He could hear conversations from far away if he concentrated. His mind felt clearer, like fog had been lifted from his thoughts. But he was not sure he should mention all of that. Just stronger, I guess. Maybe more alert. Dr. Park made a note on her tablet. We should run more medical tests. The cryosleep technology from your era might have had side effects we do not understand. Before Jake could respond, an alarm started blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and a voice came over the speakers. All crew to emergency stations. We have received a distress signal from Mining Colony 7. Devourer attack in progress. Estimated arrival time is 4 hours. Jake had heard about the Devourers from Dr. Park. They were machines that consumed everything in their path, growing stronger. With each world they destroyed, the Federation had been fighting them for decades, but could barely slow them down. Commander Voss's voice came over the speakers again. All non-essential personnel report to safe areas. This is not a drill. Dr. Park grabbed Jake's arm. Come on, we need to get to the emergency shelters. But Jake did not move. What about the people on the colony? Are we just going to run away? The Starfall Unity is a research ship, not a warship, Dr. Park explained. We will do what we can to help with evacuations, but we cannot fight the Devourers directly. Jake followed her to the emergency shelter, but his mind was racing. In his time, when people were in danger, you helped them. You did not run away and hide. The next 4 hours passed slowly. The ship's crew worked frantically to prepare rescue equipment and medical supplies. Jake sat in the shelter with other non-essential personnel, listening to updates over the communication system. When they finally arrived at Mining Colony 7, the scene was terrible. The colony's main buildings were on fire. Strange mechanical creatures moved through the wreckage, tearing apart anything they could find. The colony's defenders were falling back toward the evacuation point. Shuttle teams prepare for rescue operations, Commander Voss announced. Stay in groups and avoid direct contact with Devourer forces. Jake watched the preparations from the shelter's viewing window. Something inside him was screaming that this was wrong. These people needed help, and everyone was being too careful, too slow. I want to help with the rescue, Jake told Dr. Park. Absolutely not. You have no training for this kind of operation. I can carry people who are injured, I can help load the shuttles. You saw how strong I am. Dr. Park looked uncertain. Jake, this is dangerous. The Devourers kill anything that moves. Then we better move fast. Before Dr. Park could stop him, Jake left the shelter and headed for the shuttle bay. He found Commander Voss organizing the rescue teams. "Commander, I want to help," Jake said. Commander Voss looked at him with surprise. "You should be in the emergency shelter. I can help carry injured people. I am stronger than I look." "This is not a discussion. Return to the shelter immediately." Jake stood his ground. "In my time, when people were in danger, we helped them. We did not hide while others suffered." Something in Jake's voice made Commander Voss pause. She studied his face for a long minute. "Fine, but you stay with Rescue Team 3 and follow there. Orders exactly. Do you understand?" "Yes, Commander." The shuttle ride down to the colony was rough. Jake could see the Devourer ships in the distance, dark metal shapes that looked like hungry insects. The rescue team leader, a human named Carl, briefed them on the mission. "We get in, grab as many survivors as we can, and get out. No heroics. If you see Devourers, you run. They are faster and stronger than anything organic." The shuttle landed near the colony's emergency shelter. Families huddled together while the sound of fighting grew closer. Jake helped load children and elderly colonists into the shuttle, his enhanced strength allowing him to carry people who would have been too heavy for others. "Move faster," Carl shouted. "The Devourers are breaking through the defense line." As if summoned by his words, 3 mechanical creatures came around the corner of a burning building. They looked like metal spiders the size of horses, with glowing red sensors and cutting tools for arms. The rescue team raised their weapons, but Jake knew it would not be enough. In his time, he had been a soldier before volunteering for the colony mission. Some instincts never died. "Get the civilians to the shuttle," Jake told Carl. "I will buy you time. Are you insane? Those things will tear you apart." Jake was already moving. He grabbed a piece of metal debris from the ground, a beam that should have been too heavy for one person to lift. But it felt light in his hands. First Devourer rushed at him with cutting arms extended. Jake swung the metal beam like a club, hitting the machine with enough force to send it crashing into a wall. Sparks flew from its damaged sensors. The second Devourer tried to circle around him. Jake spun and brought the beam down on its back, crushing its central processing unit. The machine collapsed and went still. The third Devourer paused, as if confused by what it was seeing. Jake did not give it time to think. He threw the metal beam like a spear, punching through the machine's armor and destroying its power core. The entire fight had taken less than 30 seconds. Jake turned to find the rescue team staring at him in shock. Carl's mouth was hanging open. "How did you do that?" Carl whispered. Jake looked down at his hands. They were not even scratched from handling the metal beam. "I do not know." More Devourers were coming. Jake could hear their mechanical sounds getting closer. "We need to go now," Jake said. The rescue team snapped out of their shock and finished loading the civilians. As the shuttle lifted off, Jake watched the colony burning below them. He had saved those people, but he still did not understand how back on the Starfall Unity. Word spread quickly about what Jake had done. Crew members stared at him as he walked through the corridors. Some looked amazed. Others looked afraid. Doctor Zachthal was especially interested. "I would very much like to run some tests on you," the reptilian scientist said. "What you did should have been impossible for a human." "Maybe humans from my time were different," Jake replied. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you are different from other humans." That night, Jake sat in his quarters, thinking about what had happened. The strength, the speed, the way his mind had calculated the best way to fight the Devourers. None of it felt normal. Dr. Park visited him before he went to sleep. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I think so. But I'm starting to remember things from before the cryo sleep. Things that do not make sense." "What kind of things?" Jake closed his eyes. "I remember doctors. Tests. They kept saying I was special, that I was part of something important. But I cannot remember what." Dr. Park sat down beside him. "Maybe it will come back to you in time. Maybe. Or maybe it is better if it does not." But Jake knew that was not true. Whatever had been done to him in the past was waking up now. And from the way the crew looked at him, he was not sure if that was a good thing or a very dangerous thing. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Within days of the rescue at Mining Colony 7, our EPORTS spread through the Federation communication networks about a human who had fought devourers with his bare hands and won. The story grew with each telling. Some said he had destroyed 10 machines. Others claimed he had taken down an entire devourer squad. Jake tried to ignore the attention, but it was impossible. Crew members whispered when they saw him. Some asked for autographs. Others seemed afraid to get too close. He hated all of it. Dr. Zackthul was the worst. The reptilian scientist followed Jake everywhere, asking questions and requesting medical tests. Jake had refused most of them, but he could see the hunger in the alien's yellow eyes. "Your cellular structure is fascinating," Dr. Zackthul said during one of their conversations in the medical bay. "The bone density readings are off our charts. Your muscle fibers show signs of enhancement that I have never seen before. You must let me study you properly." "I am not a lab rat," Jake replied firmly. "Of course not. But you are clearly not an ordinary human either. Do you not want to understand what you are?" Jake did want to understand, but something told him to be careful. The memories were coming back slowly, in pieces. He remembered being young and desperate for work. He remembered signing papers he did not fully understand. He remembered doctors who smiled, but had cold eyes. Dr. Lisa Park entered the medical bay carrying a tablet. She looked excited about something. "Jake, I have been researching your time period. I found something interesting." She showed him the tablet screen. It displayed an old document with lots of black marks covering most of the text. "This is from the Earth Military Archives." It mentions something called Project Titan. The document is heavily classified, but it talks about volunteers for an experimental program in 2155. That is 1 year before your colony mission launched. Jake stared at the document. The name Project Titan sent a chill down his spine. He remembered that name, but not clearly. "What kind of program?" Jake asked. "Most of the information is blacked out, but it mentions genetic enhancement and cybernetic implants. The goal was to create soldiers who could survive in any environment and fight against unknown threats." Dr. Zackthul leaned forward with interest. "That would explain your abilities. You are not just human anymore. You are something more." Before Jake could respond, Commander Voss's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All senior staff, report to the bridge immediately. We have received priority orders from Federation Command." Dr. Park looked worried. "That does not sound good." When they reached the bridge, Jake could see why. The main screen showed a massive fleet of dark ships moving through space. There were hundreds of them, all bearing the twisted metal design of the Devourers. "3 Devourer fleets have joined together," Commander Voss explained to the assembled crew. "This is the largest force they have ever assembled. They are heading directly for the Federation capital world of New Harmony." Wismore the gaseous diplomat shimmered with concern. Why would they risk such a direct assault? They usually prefer to attack smaller targets. "Intelligence believes they are after something specific," Commander Voss said. "Or someone specific." Her eyes turned to Jake. Everyone on the bridge followed her gaze. They want me, Jake said quietly. That is what Federation Command thinks. The attack began moving toward Federation space right after reports of your fight. With the Devourers reached their networks, Jake felt sick. So this is my fault. No, Commander Voss said firmly. This is the Devourers' fault. They are the ones choosing to attack. But we need to get you to safety. We have been ordered to take you to New Harmony, she continued. Federation Command wants to study your abilities and see if they can help in the war effort. Jake did not like the sound of that. Study me how? They did not say. But they made it clear that you are now classified as a Federation strategic asset. The words hit Jake like a punch. Strategic asset. That meant he was no longer a person in their eyes. He was a weapon to be used. Over the next few days, as the Starfall Unity traveled toward New Harmony, Jake's memories became clearer. He remembered volunteering for Project Titan because he needed money for his family. He remembered weeks of tests and procedures. Most of all, he remembered Dr. Harrison, the man who had run the program. The human body has limits, Dr. Harrison had said during one of their sessions. But those limits are not as fixed as we think. With the right modifications, we can push beyond them. Jake remembered the pain of the procedures, the injections that felt like fire in his veins, the implants that were placed in his skull while he was awake, the genetic modifications that changed him at the cellular level. You are going to be the future of humanity, Dr. Harrison had told him. When we meet hostile aliens, you and the others will be ready to protect our species. But there had been no hostile aliens. Just empty space and a long journey to a colony world that Jake never reached. The memories brought back other things, too. Jake began to notice more changes in himself. His hearing was so sharp, he could listen to conversations 3 decks away. His vision could focus on tiny details or see clearly in almost complete darkness. His mind processed information faster than ever before. Most disturbing of all, he could feel something else awakening in his brain. Like a computer starting up after being shut down for centuries, Dr. Park noticed his distress. Are you okay? You seem different lately. The memories are coming back, Jake told her, about what they did to me. They were sitting in the ship's observation lounge, looking out at the stars. Jake found the view calming, even though the stars were still strange to him. What did they do? They made me into a weapon, enhanced my body, upgraded my mind, turned me into something that could fight aliens. But then they decided the program was too dangerous and tried to shut it down. What happened to the other volunteers? Jake's expression darkened. I think they were killed. I remember being told that I was the only one left. That is why they put me on the colony ship. They could not bring themselves to execute me, so they sent me away instead. Dr. Park put her hand on his arm. I am sorry. That must have been terrible. The worst part is that I think it is not over. Whatever they put in my head, it is still activating. I can feel it happening. As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Jake and Dr. Park rushed to the nearest view screen to see what was happening. Space around them was filled with Devourer ships. Dozens of the dark vessels surrounded the Starfall Unity, their weapons charging for attack. How did they find us so fast? Dr. Park asked. Jake closed his eyes and tried to think. The enhanced part of his mind was working now, processing information at incredible speed. Suddenly, he understood. They have been tracking me, he said. Something. And my body is sending out a signal. The ship shook as the first Devourer weapons hit the shields. Emergency lighting activated, and crew members ran to battle stations. Commander Voss's voice came over the speakers. All hands prepare for combat. We are surrounded, but Federation reinforcements are on the way. Jake looked out at the enemy ships. There were too many of them. The Starfall Unity was a research vessel, not built for fighting. Even with reinforcements, most of the crew would die, unless he did something about it. "I have to leave the ship," Jake told Dr. Park. "What?" "That is suicide. No, staying here is suicide. For all of you. They want me, so I will go to them." Dr. Park grabbed his arm. "Jake, you cannot fight an entire fleet by yourself." Jake looked at her with eyes that seemed different now. Older, colder, more focused. "Maybe I cannot, but I'm not going to let good people die because of what I am." The ship shook again, harder this time. Sparks flew from damaged systems. "The shields are failing," someone shouted over the communication system. Jake made his decision. Whatever Project Titan had made him into, it was time to find out exactly what that meant. And somewhere in the depths of space, more Devourer fleets were converging on their position, drawn by the signal that Jake now realized had been broadcasting from his body for weeks that the real war was about to begin. The Starfall Unity shook violently as another wave of Devourer weapons hit the shields. Red warning lights flashed throughout the ship, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. Jake could hear the crew shouting orders and running. Through the corridors, trying to keep their ship alive. Through the observation windows, Jake watched the battle unfolding around them. Federation ships had arrived to help, but they were badly outnumbered. For every Federation vessel, there were 5 Devourer ships. The organic ships fought bravely, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy armor. Jake saw a Federation cruiser explode in a ball of fire, then another. The Devourers moved through space like sharks, fast and deadly. Their weapons cut through Federation shields like they were made of paper. "We have to evacuate the ship," Dr. Park said, grabbing Jake's arm. "The shields are down to 20%. But Jake was not listening. Something was happening inside his head. The implants that had been quiet for so long were fully awakening. Now, information flowed through his mind like water through a dam that had just burst open. He could see the battle patterns of every ship. He could calculate weapon trajectories and shield strengths. Most importantly, he could see how the Devourers were coordinating their attacks. They were not just random machines. They were following a plan. "The command ship," Jake said quietly. "What?" "There." Jake pointed to a massive Devourer vessel in the center of the enemy fleet. It was 3 times larger than any other ship and covered in communication arrays. "That is their command ship. If I can reach it, I can stop this." Dr. Park stared at him. "Jake, that is impossible. You would have to fly through hundreds of enemy ships." "I know." Jake turned away from the window and headed for the shuttle bay. Dr. Park followed him, calling his name. Other crew members tried to stop him, but Jake walked past them like they were not there. His mind was focused on one thing now. In the shuttle bay, Jake found a small fighter craft being prepared for evacuation duty. The pilot, a young human named Ben, was running through the pre-flight checks. "I need your ship," Jake told him. "Sorry, but this fighter is reserved for emergency evacuation." "Commander's orders." Jake looked at Ben with eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. "The emergency is happening right now. Give me the ship." Something in Jake's voice made Ben step back. He handed over the controls without another word. Dr. Park arrived just as Jake was climbing into the fighter. "This is suicide, Jake. Even if you reach their command ship, you are just one person." "No," Jake said, his voice different now, colder and more controlled. "I am not just one person anymore. I am what they made me to be." The fighter launched from the Starfall Unity and immediately came under fire from a dozen Devourer ships. Jake's enhanced reflexes took over, and the small craft danced through the enemy weapons' fire like it was choreographed. He could see each shot coming before it was fired, could calculate the exact movements needed to avoid them, The fighters' weapons were small, barely enough to scratch Devourer armor. But Jake was not trying to destroy ships. He was trying to reach the command vessel, and his enhanced mind had already calculated the best path through the enemy fleet. He dove between two Devourer cruisers, using their own bulk to shield him from other attackers. When they tried to turn their weapons on him, Jake was already gone, weaving through a formation of smaller ships. The Devourer ships began changing their attack patterns, trying to box him in. But Jake's mind was working faster than their computers. Now, he could predict their moves 3 steps ahead, could see gaps in their formations before they even appeared. A Devourer fighter tried to ram him. Jake spun his craft at the last second, letting the enemy ship crash into one of its own allies instead. The explosion lit up space around them. More enemy ships converged on his position. Jake's fighter took several hits, systems sparking and failing around him. But he kept flying, kept dodging, kept moving toward the command ship behind him. The battle between the Federation and Devourer fleets continued. Jake could hear the radio chatter from Federation ships, their captains amazed by what they were seeing. How is that fighter pilot doing that? No one can fly like that. It is impossible. Who is in that ship? Jake ignored them all. The command ship was getting closer, its weapons turning toward him. The massive vessel fired everything it had, filling space with deadly energy beams and projectiles. Jake's mind went into overdrive. Time seemed to slow down around him. He could see each weapon shot as it left the enemy ship, could calculate its path and speed. His hands moved on the controls without conscious thought, guided by reflexes that were faster than human. The fighter twisted and spun through the weapon fire like a leaf in a hurricane. Jake took hits that should have destroyed his ship, but somehow kept flying. The command ship's weapons could not track something that moved so unpredictably. When Jake was close enough, he stopped trying to avoid the weapon's fire. Instead, he aimed his damaged fighter directly at the command ship's hull and fired his engines at maximum power. The Federation pilots, watching, could not believe what they were seeing. "He's going to ram them," someone said over the radio. "That is suicide." But Jake was not planning to die in the crash. As his fighter hit the command ship's hull, he used the last of his ship's power to blast through the outer armor. Then, as the fighter exploded around him, Jake jumped clear. He should have died in the vacuum of space. But his enhanced body did not need air the way normal humans did. The genetic modifications let him survive for short periods in space, and the cybernetic implants protected his brain from the cold and radiation. Jake landed hard on the command ship's hull and began looking for a way inside. His enhanced strength let him tear through metal plating that would have been impossible for normal humans to move. Within minutes, he had created a hole large enough to enter the ship. The interior of the Devourer command ship was like nothing Jake had ever seen. Corridors filled with mechanical creatures and computer systems that stretched for miles. Everything was dark metal and glowing red lights. The air smelled like oil and ozone. Devourer soldiers came at him immediately. They were faster and stronger than the ones he had fought before, but Jake was different now too. His body moved with perfect precision, every action calculated for maximum effect. He fought his way through them like they were standing still. Jake's fists smashed through metal armor. His kicks sent Devourer soldiers flying into walls, hard enough to break their systems. When they tried to surround him, he moved too fast for them to track. More soldiers came, then more. Jake fought through corridor after corridor, leaving a trail of destroyed machines behind him. His enhanced mind guided him toward the ship's bridge, following the layout that his implants had somehow downloaded from the ship's systems. The bridge was enormous, filled with computers and screens showing the battle outside. At the center stood a figure that made Jake stop in his tracks. It was partly machine and partly something that might once have been organic. Tall and powerful, with glowing red sensors where eyes should have been. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "You are the enhanced human," it said. "I am Warlord Kethmorik, Supreme Commander of the Devourer Fleets. We have been searching for you? Why?" Jake asked, his breathing steady despite the fighting he had just done. "Because you represent something we lost long ago, the ability to adapt, to grow beyond our original design. We were once organic beings like you, but we chose the path of mechanical perfection. It made us strong, but it also made us limited." Kethmorik stepped closer. "You are what we wish to become again. Organic flexibility combined with technological enhancement. We need to study you to understand how it is possible. You killed millions of people just to capture me? We kill because it is our nature now. But with your genetic template, we could become something more. We could evolve." Jake felt anger building inside him, but it was cold and controlled. "You want to evolve? Let me help you with that." The fight between Jake and Kethmorik was like nothing that had ever happened before. The warlord was fast and strong, his mechanical body enhanced with weapons and armor. But Jake was something new, something that combined the best of both organic and artificial enhancement. They crashed through walls and computer systems, their battle shaking the entire command ship. Kethmorik's weapons cut through metal but could not touch Jake, who moved like water around every attack. Jake's punches cracked the warlord's armor. His speed let him attack from angles that Kethmorik could not defend against. But the warlord was tough, repairing damage almost as fast. As Jake could cause it, the battle might have gone on forever. But Jake realized something. He was not just fighting Kethmorik. He was fighting the idea that organic life had to choose between flexibility and power. "You are wrong," Jake told the warlord as they grappled in the center of the bridge. "You do not have to lose your ability to grow. You just have to remember what you used to be." With those words, Jake did something unexpected. Instead of destroying Kethmorik, he grabbed the warlord's head and shared his memories. Through the neural implants, Jake showed Kethmorik what it meant to be human, what it meant to grow and change and adapt. The silence in space was strange. For the first time in decades, Devourer ships had stopped attacking. They hung motionless in the void, their weapons powered down, as if they were thinking about something new and confusing. Jake stood on the bridge of the command ship, still holding Warlord Kethmorik as head. The connection between their minds was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Through the neural link, Jake could feel the warlord's confusion spreading through the entire Devourer fleet. "What have you done to me?" Kethmorik asked, his voice filled with something that might have been wonder. "I showed you what you used to be," Jake replied, "before you became machines, before you forgot how to grow." Through the shared memories, Kethmorik was seeing images of organic life, not just human life, but all the different species in the galaxy. The warlord experienced what it felt like to learn, to change, to become something new without losing what you were before. "This is difficult to process," Kethmorik said. "Our programming does not have categories for these concepts." Then, maybe it is time to write new programming. Jake released his hold on the warlord and stepped back. Around them, the command ship systems were buzzing with activity as thousands of Devourer ships tried to understand the new information flowing through their networks. "My people will not accept this easily," Kethmorik warned. "We have been machines for so long that many have forgotten we were ever anything else." "Some will resist," Jake agreed, "but others will remember. And that will be enough to start." Through the ship's communication systems, Jake could hear Federation commanders trying to understand what was happening. The battle had stopped so suddenly. That many pilots were still waiting for orders. Commander Voss's voice came through clearly. Jake, if you can hear this, please respond. What is your status? Jake found a communication panel and activated it. I am alive, Commander. The immediate threat has passed. What happened? A Devourer fleet just stopped attacking. Jake looked at Keth Morok, who was still processing the flood of new information. We came to an understanding. Over the next several hours, Jake worked with Keth Morok to establish a temporary ceasefire. It was not easy. Many Devourer commanders wanted to continue the attack, arguing that their mission was to consume and expand, not to negotiate with organic life. But the memories Jake had shared were spreading through their networks like a virus. Slowly, more and more Devourer ships began to question their programming. They remembered fragments of what they had been before, becoming machines. Jake was finally able to return to the Starfall Unity. Dr. Park was waiting for him in the shuttle. Bay, along with most of the crew. They stared at him with a mixture of awe and fear. You stopped an entire fleet, Dr. Park said quietly. How? I reminded them of something they had forgotten, Jake replied. That being strong does not mean you have to stop growing. Commander. Voss approached with a serious expression. Jake, I have received orders from Federation Command. They want you to return to New Harmony immediately for debriefing. Jake nodded. He had expected this. What kind of debriefing? They want to understand what you are, how you did what you did. They are talking about forming a new military unit based on your capabilities. They want to make more soldiers like me. Yes. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Through the ship's windows, he could see the mixed Federation and Devourer fleets maintaining their uneasy ceasefire. It was a start, but it was fragile. One wrong move could restart the war. There is something else, Commander Voss continued. Our long-range sensors have detected signals from deep space. Leaving signals, to be exact. They match the energy signature of your cryopod. Jake felt his blood turn cold. The other volunteers from Project Titan. That is what our scientists believe. The signals are scattered across different star systems, some of them very far away. If they are who we think they are, then there are 11 more people like me out there, still sleeping. Dr. Zakthul stepped forward, his yellow eyes bright with excitement. Think of the possibilities, Jake. 12 enhanced humans could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity could become a dominant species instead of a junior member of the Federation. Or we could become something terrible, Jake replied. Power like this ... it changes people. I can feel it changing me. Dr. Park put her hand on his arm. You stopped a war today, Jake. You chose understanding over violence. That does not sound terrible to me. Jake wanted to believe her, but he could feel the cold calculation in his enhanced mind. The part of him that was still human was getting smaller every day, replaced by something more efficient and ruthless. He wondered what the others would be like when they woke up. The journey to New Harmony took 3 days. During that time, Jake spent most of his time in his quarters, trying to understand what he was becoming. The neural implants were still activating. New capabilities. He could now interface directly with computer systems by touch. His body was healing from injuries faster than should be possible. Most disturbing of all, he was starting to see other people differently, not as equals, but as lesser beings, slower, weaker, limited. He hated that feeling, but it was getting harder to ignore. When they arrived at New Harmony, Jake was surprised by what he found. The Federation capital was not just a government center. It was home to billions of beings from hundreds of different species. The cities stretched across entire continents, with buildings that reached into the clouds and transport systems that moved people at incredible speeds. But what impressed Jake most was how different species worked together. He saw Cleath engineers, collaborating with human scientists. Vorthan diplomats negotiating with gaseous Nebulians. Dozens of other species he had never seen before, all living and working side by side. This was what humanity had become part of. Not conquerors or rulers, but partners in something larger than any one species could achieve alone. The Federation leaders who met with Jake were a mixed group. Some were excited about his abilities and wanted to study him immediately. Others were cautious, worried about what he represented. A few seemed afraid of him. "The question we face," said Chancellor Moran, a tall blue-skinned being who led the Federation Council, "is what to do with this new development. Humanity has been a valued member of our alliance, but these enhanced individuals could change everything. They could make humanity too powerful," added General Crix, a heavily armored Cleith military commander. "What happens when they no longer need the Federation?" Jake listened to their discussions and debates. They talked about him like he was not in the room, analyzing him like a problem to be solved, rather than a person with his own thoughts and feelings. Finally, Jake stood up and spoke. "You are asking the wrong questions," he said. "You want to know what I am, what I can do, how to use me. But the real question is what we choose to become." He looked around the room at the assembled leaders. "I could help you find the other enhanced humans. I could help you wake them up and create an army that could conquer half the galaxy. Or I could help you understand that real strength comes from working together, not from being the most powerful." "Chancellor." Moran leaned forward. "What are you proposing?" "Give me a ship and a crew. Let me search for the others. But not to wake them up and turn them into weapons. To give them a choice about what they want to be. And if they choose to be weapons. Anyway," Jake was quiet for a moment, "then I will stop them. That is what I was made for." The Federation Council debated for hours. In the end, they agreed to Jake's proposal. Commander Voss volunteered to captain the search mission, and Dr. Park requested to serve as the mission's medical officer. 3 weeks later, Jake stood on the bridge of a new ship called the Pathfinder, watching the stars ahead of them. Their first destination was a distant system where one of the signals had been detected. "Are you nervous?" Dr. Park asked him. "Yes," Jake admitted. "I do not know what the others will be like when they wake up." Project Titan was supposed to create perfect soldiers. But perfect for what? Maybe that is up to them to decide. Jake nodded, but he kept his doubts to himself. He could feel his own humanity slipping away bit by bit, replaced by something colder and more calculating. If the others had been asleep, even longer, what would they have become? Behind them, the Devourer fleets were slowly learning to coexist with organic species. Some had chosen to join the Federation as partners rather than conquerors. Others had simply disappeared into deep space, searching for their own path forward. It was progress, but Jake knew it was only the beginning. The galaxy was about to discover what 12 enhanced humans could do when they worked together. The question was whether that would be a blessing or a curse for everyone else. As the Pathfinder jumped to hyperspace, Jake made himself a promise. He would find the others. He would give them choices. And if necessary, he would protect the galaxy from what they had all been made to become, even if that meant protecting it from himself.